Hi there, Michael here. If you have been watching my channel for a while, you might be aware that my absolute favorite open-back headphones are the Neumann NDH30. They are a bit pricey, but they sound absolutely great. They have a well-rounded sound signature that is not as painfully bright as some of the Beyerdynamics, for example, but they are still very detailed and in general fit my personal hearing preferences brilliantly. Neumann has recently released a plugin called Rime, which complements these headphones. The plugin provides reference quality immersive monitoring, meaning that it takes audio in 7.1.4 format and renders it binaurally to perfectly match the frequency response of the Neumann NDH20 or the NDH30. This is not the first plugin of this kind. In fact, I've reviewed quite a few of them, such as, for example, Embody Immerse or the Stephen Slate VSX system, but it does have a few unusual tricks up its sleeve, and since it's specifically designed for my favorite headphones, I felt I need to make a video about it. So this is what we're going to talk about today, the Neumann Rime Immersive Binaural Rendering plugin for Neumann headphones. Is it any good? Should you get it? Or should you possibly look elsewhere? Let's find out. Before I get started, two quick comments. First of all, a clarification. This is not a sponsored video. In fact, I paid for both the headphones as well as the plugin, full price myself. All opinions expressed are therefore strictly my own. Second, and that is important, you're not going to hear any audio going through the plugin in this video. I thought a lot about that and ended up deciding against including the audio, and the reason for that is quite simple. Unless you actually have the Neumann NDH30 headphones, the sound you would hear would make absolutely no sense to you. The plugin corrects any inconsistencies in the frequency response of the NDH30, so if you're listening to this with other headphones, this would completely screw up what you hear. I know that I will get comments like, I did not hear any audio, but I felt it is better not to include the audio in this video for that particular reason. If you have the Neumann NDH20 or 30, I highly recommend downloading the trial of the plugin and test out for yourself if you like what it does. And if you do not have the Neumann headphones and are wondering if you should get the headphones with the plugin, well, I'm going to give you my recommendation at the end of this video. And with that being said, let's open up a Reaper session with a 7.1.4 track and check out Neumann Rime. So what I have here is a very simple Reaper session with a stereo track that I've upmixed to 7.1.4 using Sam Hawking's excellent Eno plugin. If you're interested in the plugin, I did a review of Eno a while back. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. And this 7.1.4 is then routed into a 7.1.4 master bus. And in order to be able to hear everything correctly, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simply add the Rime plugin to the master bus. I'm going to add the audio unit version. The plugin works for Windows as well as Mac. Kind of both systems work actually fine. And let's add that. And here we have the Eno plugin. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to change the input configuration because on Reaper that is not detected automatically. So let's switch that over to 7.1.4. And as soon as I've switched it over, I see all the individual channels coming in. Now there are a couple of things that I need to set or change. The first thing is I need to select the headphone profile. Now I'm working with the NDH30, but you can obviously also change that to the NDH20 in case you have those. You can add a low shelf or a high shelf to your profile if you want to. You can change the master gain if you want to. Then there are a couple of special features that I've not really seen in a lot of binaural renderers, and in order to get that, we need to go to the cogwheel here. And in the cogwheel, what we can do here is we can adjust the interaural time difference settings. And that's actually really important. If you have a very big head, for example, like me, or a small head, then the binaural rendering will usually not work particularly well for you, or the standard binaural rendering. And that is because the time difference between the audio reaching your left ear and your right ear is going to kind of be a little bit off. And in order to compensate for that, what you can set is an interaural time difference in some binaural rendering plugins. And this will essentially adjust your head size and make sure that everything is reaching your ears in exactly the way your ears or your brain would normally expect it. Now, in my case, I had to set it to 105%, so I have a slightly larger than average head, and that actually works exceptionally well, and it gives me a much better impression than a standard binaural rendering plugin. Now, there are a couple of additional things that we can adjust, and for that, let me maybe first close the Eno plugin because that is a little bit in the way. And the first thing that we can do is we can change the ambient settings, and the ambience is essentially the amount of the signal that is influenced by the room, really. So if you put that here over to completely dry, you will get the clean signal. If you put it to wet, you will essentially get the signal plus the added effect of the room in the signal. Now, I have to be perfectly honest that for me, I don't really hear any difference. I'm not quite sure why that is. It could be that it is a bug of the version that I'm using. I'm using the very first version. It could also be that the algorithm is so subtle that I simply can't hear the difference. But be aware that at least at the moment I'm recording this video, the amount of change that is happening here is so subtle that I'm not really hearing anything. The other thing that we can do is we can mute or solo certain speakers. So if you want to only hear the left speakers, for example, we can solo that, or the right speakers. Now, the thing which is really unique and which really took me a little bit by surprise is that this is actually the first plugin that if I'm, for example, selecting the rear speaker, I actually hear that in the rear. This is normally not happening. I'm assuming that is primarily because I can fine-tune the interaural time difference for my head size, but I've never had it with any other plugin that I was actually able to really hear things behind me in the binaural renderer. So this is completely new, and this is actually quite exciting for me. Now, there's one additional feature that I think is really exciting, and that is the fact that Neumann included a head tracking capability into the Rime plugin. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I do a lot of head tracking videos, so this addition to the Rime plugin is truly appreciated, and it works natively with the Subaware head tracker, a head tracker that I really like and that I usually recommend, and that also works, for example, with Dolby Atmos renderer. Now, I'm going to show you how to set that up, but in order to do that, I first need to put the head tracker onto my headphones, and if you've been watching my channel, you know that that can be a little bit fiddly, so I'm going to disappear for a second and come back once the head tracker is on my headphones. So the head tracker is now on my headphones, and I've not yet connected that to my computer. That is done via this USB-C cable. And in order to get the head tracker work with the Neumann Rime plugin, the first thing that we need to do is we need to start up the head tracking application, the Bridge plugin or the Bridgehead plugin. So let's open that up. Here we have Bridgehead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now connect the head tracker to my laptop here. So that's kind of here sitting on the side. And as soon as I have that set up, I see the head movement. Now, a couple of things in order to make that work. We need to change the bridge settings in order to be able to work with the Neumann. And for that, Subaware has included a Neumann profile. If you don't see the Neumann profile in your profiles, you can simply add one. And the manual of Neumann Rime actually includes instructions how to do that. It's essentially expecting port 7001, and it's expecting the format in yaw, pitch, and roll. And with that, essentially, let's go back to Reaper. And as soon as I have the Neumann connected, or as soon as I have the Neumann profile selected in the Bridgehead plugin, I see that the head tracking is already green, it's already receiving information, and I can see here the angle that is red from the head tracker. And now one thing which is a little bit unfortunate is the fact that head tracking only uses the horizontal angle. So it's only using the azimuth. It's not going to give you anything in terms of pitch or anything in terms of roll. Those values are not read, only the yaw, so only kind of a movement from left to right. But I found that to be actually perfectly fine. For most of the applications, I actually don't really need more than that. And if I play the audio, and once again, you're not going to hear that here, I now actually hear the audio in as if I would be in a real 7.1.4 studio. And that works surprisingly well. That actually kind of, I know I say that a lot in my videos, that this works good and this works well. But in this particular case, it actually really does. So this is quite outstanding. Now, maybe at some point they're going to include the pitch and yaw, the pitch and the roll angles as well in the head tracking. But once again, the yaw angle is actually perfectly fine for 99% of the applications, and that actually gives you a really, really immersive impression. So what's my final conclusion? Well, let's first start with the positives. First of all, the sound quality the plugin is producing is absolutely outstanding. It really takes the Neumann NDH30, which are already very good to begin with, to the next level. I've tested many so-called mix room plugins. Usually when you first put such a plugin into your signal chain, the resulting binaural output sounds somewhat off. In general, it takes a while until you get used to the binaural signal, which is why many people do not like to monitor binaurally. I can honestly say this is not the case for the Neumann Rime plugin. I'm not quite sure why that is. It could be that the binaural rendering algorithm Neumann uses is more subtle. It could also be that the combination with the perfect frequency correction for these headphones makes a difference. All I can say is that if you put the Neumann Rime plugin onto your signal chain, it immediately sounds good. So good, in fact, that I can no longer see myself using the Neumann headphones without the plugin, even if I'm working only in stereo. The second standout feature is the fact that you can adjust the interaural time difference to your head size. I'm not sure why not more binaural renderers include that feature. It's truly a game changer. This is one of the few binaural renderers that actually works for me and my big head. The sounds are coming exactly from where they are supposed to come. If the sound is behind me, I'm actually hearing it from behind. Another very welcome positive feature is the inclusion of the head tracking functionality. It is only tracking horizontal movement, but that is generally good enough for most applications. In fact, the limitation to horizontal movement might actually be an advantage, since humans are not really good in perceiving height information in audio anyway, and the limitation to horizontal movement therefore forces you to focus on what matters most in an immersive mix. The integration with the sub-wave head tracker is easy and smooth, and the tracker itself is fairly inexpensive, so even if you do not plan to use it regularly, it is always a nice to have, just in case. On the negative side, the plugin is a bit expensive, especially considering that it is a paid add-on to the already quite expensive headphones. It would have been nice if Neumann would have included them with the headphones, but that did not happen. Instead, you have to purchase the plugin extra for about $100. Is it worth it? In my opinion, yes, but I can absolutely understand why some people would not want to touch that at that price point. The second negative issue is one that might be specific to my situation. I bought the plugin early on, and at least at the time, it appears that Neumann had to create the license manually. So I had to wait a business day to get the license, and during that time, there was no confirmation that the purchase had happened, no email with an explanation, just a charge to my credit card. It is very possible that Neumann has fixed this since then, but just in case you do not receive anything after your purchase, you might need to wait a day or two to get confirmation and license code. If you bought the plugin and did not experience that issue, I would actually appreciate if you could leave a comment in the comment section below so that everybody knows. And finally, I'm honestly not quite sure if the ambient setting is actually doing anything. If it does, it is so subtle that I was not able to hear a difference. But I honestly did not miss anything either, so this does not bother me at all. It could also simply be a bug that has been fixed by the time you are watching this video. So in conclusion, should you get the plugin? Well, if you already have the headphones, then you should absolutely give this plugin a try. It is spectacularly good. It has a 2 weeks trial period during which it is fully functional, so you do not have to purchase it right away. If you do not have the Neumann headphones and are wondering if you should get the headphones along with the plugin, my recommendation would be to maybe look elsewhere, such as the Embody Immerse Studio or maybe even the Stephen Slate VSX system. These solutions will give you a somewhat comparable experience for a much lower cost. The Neumann headphones, while very good, are also very expensive, so I would advise against purchasing the headphones just for being able to use the Rime plugin. If you're already on the market for high-end monitoring headphones, however, that might be a different story. But that is something you need to decide for yourself. Well, that's everything for today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or join our free Discord server. The invite link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.